In the quiet town of Aruna, inside a large cream-colored mansion, a woman sat silently near a tall window. Soft piano music played in the background while the evening breeze moved the curtains slowly. "Lyra, darling," a man's voice said gently from the doorway. "I'm going to bed now. Do you need anything?" The woman in the wheelchair slightly turned her head toward his voice. Welcome to the sweetest African folktale stories, where we bring to you the sweetest folktales to nourish your mind and soul. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so we can grow together, sweet folks. "No, my love," she replied softly. "I'm fine. Good night." "Sleep well," the man said. His footsteps slowly faded as he walked upstairs, but the moment the room became quiet, the peaceful expression on Lyra's face disappeared. Her fingers tightened around the armrest of the wheelchair, because the truth was simple. Lyra was not blind, and she was not paralyzed, but everyone in the house believed she was.
Go,
6
keep it
months
steady.
earlier,
Copy
an
that.
accident
Watch
had
the crowd.
supposedly destroyed
Vitals are
her
stable.
life.
Almost there.
Doctors had told
Let's
her
go, keep it
husband
steady.
she would never
Copy
see
that.
again
Watch the crowd.
and would never
Vitals
walk
are stable.
again.
Almost there.
At least that was the story everyone believed. But Lyra could hear everything in that house, every whisper, every lie, every secret. And sometimes the people who think you cannot see are the ones who reveal the most. 8 months earlier, Lyra Dane was one of the most successful
Excellent
young
presentation.
entrepreneurs in the
excited
city.
for what's next.
Her
We're with
technology
you.
company had grown faster than anyone expected. When she finally sold the company, the deal was worth over 200 million naira. Friends called her brilliant. Magazines called her unstoppable. But Lyra always said one thing.
I don't
Money
care
means
about your
nothing
money.
if you don't
know.
have someone to
That's
share
what I
life
love
with.
about you.
And she believed she had found that person.
I don't care
Her
about your
husband,
money.
Reno.
I know.
Tall,
That's what I love about you.
charming, smooth with words. The kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone like him instantly. When they first met, Reno had smiled at her across a dinner table and said, "I don't care about your money, Lyra. I care about you." Lyra had laughed. "Well, that's good," she said, "because my business comes with stress." "I can handle stress," Reno replied confidently. For a while, he really did seem perfect. They traveled together, hosted parties together, they built a life together. But 3 years into their marriage, small things started changing. Very small things. Things most people might ignore, but Lyra noticed everything. At first, it was Reno coming home late. "Business dinner," he would say, loosening his tie. "Important clients." Lyra would smile politely. Of course. But one evening, as he passed her in the hallway, she caught a strange scent. Perfume, not hers. Another time, she noticed him quickly turning his phone face down when she walked into the room. "Who were you talking to?" she asked casually. "Just work," he replied quickly. He kissed her forehead. "You worry too much." Lyra tried to believe him, but her instincts refused to stay quiet. Then, one afternoon, she returned from a business trip a day earlier than expected. The house was unusually quiet. As she walked upstairs, she heard something, a soft laugh, from the bedroom. Then another voice, a woman's voice. Lyra's heart began beating slowly but heavily. She pushed open the bedroom door, and there he was, Reno, in bed, with her personal assistant. For a moment, the room froze. The assistant gasped. Reno jumped up. "Lyra, this isn't—" But Lyra didn't shout. She didn't cry. She didn't throw anything. Instead, she quietly closed the door. Then she walked downstairs and sat on the couch. Her mind moved carefully, calmly. Most people would have filed for divorce immediately, but Lyra wanted answers. "How long?" she whispered to herself. "How many women? And did he ever love me?" She needed proof, real proof, not arguments, not excuses. Evidence, cold, undeniable evidence. And slowly, an idea began forming in her mind. A dangerous idea. A plan that would reveal everything. 2 weeks later, Lyra's car crashed on a quiet
Let's go,
road
keep it
outside the
steady.
city.
Copy
The
that.
accident
Watch the crowd.
looked terrible.
Vitals are
The
stable.
front of the
Almost
car
there.
was badly damaged. Witnesses later told police the crash seemed completely real. Paramedics rushed Lyra to the hospital. She remained unconscious when Reno arrived. Doctors spoke to him in a quiet hallway. "We're very sorry," the doctor said. "She suffered a severe brain injury." Reno's face went pale. "What does that mean?" "She has lost her vision," the doctor continued, "and there is paralysis from the waist down." Reno covered his mouth in shock. "You mean she can't see?" "No." "And she can't walk?" "She will need full-time care." The doctor placed a hand on Reno's shoulder. "I'm sorry." Reno nodded slowly. He looked devastated. But inside the hospital room, lying on the bed with her eyes closed, Lyra heard something in his voice. Something small, something chilling. Relief. 2 days later, Reno brought Lyra home. She sat in a wheelchair, wearing dark glasses. Her voice sounded weak. "I'm sorry. I've become such a burden." Reno knelt beside her. "Don't say that," he said gently. "I will always take care of you." Lyra nodded slowly. "Thank you." But later that night, Reno stepped onto the balcony and made a phone call. Lyra sat quietly in the dark living room. Her ears listened carefully. "She's completely blind," Reno said into the phone. The doctors confirmed it. A pause. "Yes, paralyzed too." Another pause. Then he whispered something that made Lyra's knuckles tighten. "This changes everything." The first week after the accident, Reno began behaving like the perfect husband. Every morning, he would help Lyra into her wheelchair. "Careful," he would say softly, "step by step." Lyra would nod slowly, pretending to struggle. "Thank you. I still feel so useless." "Don't say that," Reno replied kindly. "You are still my wife." But when he thought she wasn't paying attention, his voice changed. One afternoon, Lyra heard him speaking quietly on the phone. "Yes, she can't see anything," he said into the phone. A woman's voice spoke from the other side of the call. "Are you sure?" "I tested it," Reno said with a small laugh. "I waved my hand in front of her face. Nothing." Lyra sat still in the wheelchair, her eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Inside, her anger burned slowly. 3 days later, Reno brought home a woman. "Lyra," he announced loudly, "this is Mira. She will help take care of you." The woman walked closer. "Hello," Mira said politely. "Thank you for helping," Lyra replied weakly. But as Reno walked Mira toward the kitchen, Lyra heard something. A quiet kiss. Then Mira whispered, "Is she really blind?" "Yes," Reno answered confidently. "She can't see a thing." Lyra sat silently. Her acting had begun. By the second week, Reno's kindness started fading. He still helped Lyra move around the house, but the patience in his voice was disappearing. "Why do you need the light on?" he once asked sharply. "You can't even see." Lyra lowered her head. I just feel safer." "Fine," he sighed. Later, that same afternoon,
She might as
another
well be
woman
asleep.
visited. Reno
I know.
didn't even bother
It's like she's
introducing
not
her.
even here.
They walked
We have
past
to
Lyra
try.
in the living room as if she were a statue. "Is she asleep?" the woman asked quietly. "No," Reno laughed softly, "but she might as well be." The two of them walked upstairs. Moments later, the sound of a bedroom door closing echoed through the hallway. Lyra sat alone in her wheelchair. The house that once felt like a palace now felt like a stage. But she wasn't helpless. Weeks before the accident, Lyra had installed a full smart security system inside the mansion. Hidden cameras, voice-activated recorders, encrypted data storage. Every room except the bathrooms had recording devices. Every conversation was captured. Every movement was saved. Every betrayal is documented. Each night, when Reno believed she was asleep, Lyra quietly reviewed the footage inside a hidden drawer in her bed, and the evidence kept growing. By the end of the first month, Reno stopped pretending completely. Women came and went freely. Some stayed for hours. Some stayed overnight. One afternoon, Lyra heard two women laughing loudly in the kitchen. "Wow," one of them said, "this house is huge." "Yeah," the other replied. "Reno said his wife used to run a tech company." "Used to? She's blind now, remember?" Both women laughed. "Lucky him. All this money and she can't even watch him spend it." Lyra kept her face completely calm, but her heart hardened. Later that evening, Reno brought another woman home. Lyra recognized the sound of high heels tapping across the marble floor.
Once the
The
papissary
woman
goes
laughed
through, I'll
loudly.
move her somewhere.
"You're
But are you sure
unbelievable,
it's
Reno."
safe?
It's our
"What?"
only
he
option.
asked. "You bring me to your house while your wife is sitting right there." Reno chuckled. "She can't see you. And she can't walk." The woman lowered her voice. "Still, isn't it cruel?" Reno shrugged. "Relax." Then he whispered something that froze Lyra's blood. "Once the paperwork goes through, I'll move her somewhere else." "Somewhere else?" the woman asked. "A private care facility," Reno said casually. "She'll be comfortable." "And you?" the woman asked. "I'll finally be free." They both laughed. Lyra's nails dug into the wheelchair armrests, but she remained perfectly still. The trap was not ready yet. She needed more evidence, more truth, more time. 4 months after the accident, something unexpected happened. A familiar voice entered the house. "Hello?" the woman called from the doorway. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She knew that voice. It was Sena, her younger sister. "Sena," Reno said happily. "I didn't know you were coming today." "I missed you," Sena replied sweetly. Lyra's fingers tightened slowly around the chair. Why did her sister sound so comfortable with him? The two walked into the kitchen. "Is she in the living room?" Sena asked. "Yes," Reno said. "Does she suspect anything?" Sena whispered. "No," Reno laughed quietly. "She's blind, remember?" Lyra's breathing slowed. Then Sena asked the question that shattered the last piece of trust left in her heart. "So, when are you leaving her?" Reno replied calmly. "Soon." There was a pause. "I'm almost done transferring the financial control." "And what about Lyra?" Sena asked. Reno's voice became cold. "A care home. She'll never know the difference." A few seconds later, Lyra heard them kiss, her sister and her husband. Her knuckles turned white with rage, but her face remained emotionless behind the dark glasses. That night, after the house became quiet, Lyra reached into the hidden drawer beside her bed and picked up her phone. She dialed one number. Her best friend answered immediately. "Hello?" Lyra spoke softly but firmly. "Jora, it's time." The line was quiet for a moment after Lyra spoke. Then her best friend, Jora, asked carefully, "Are you sure?" Lyra stared toward the dark window, her voice calm but firm. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." Jora sighed softly. "I've been waiting for this call." For months, Jora had helped her behind the scenes. She managed the hidden files, secured the recordings, and kept copies of every video the cameras captured. "You have enough evidence now?" Jora asked. "More than enough. Every conversation, every woman, every plan to steal my money." Jora let out a low whistle. "That man is finished." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "But we won't rush it," she said. "What do you mean?" "I want everyone to see the truth. Not just lawyers, not just the court. Everyone." Jora laughed softly. "You are planning something big. Oh, very big." Lyra paused for a moment before continuing. "I'm going to throw a party." "A party?" Jora asked in surprise. "Yes," Lyra said calmly. "A celebration." "For what?" "For surviving the accident." Jora slowly understood. "And you are inviting Reno?" "Of course." "And his visitors?" Lyra smiled faintly. "I'm inviting everyone." The next morning, Lyra mentioned
Sorry
the
about
idea
that.
to Reno
I'm all
during
yours now.
breakfast.
I was hoping
"I've
you'd
been
say
thinking,"
that.
she said
You
quietly.
look beautiful tonight.
"Yes,"
Thank you.
Reno replied while checking his phone. "I want to throw a party." Reno looked surprised. "A party?" "Yes," Lyra said softly. "To thank the people who supported me after the accident." Reno leaned closer. "I'll handle everything," he said eagerly. Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Really?" "Of course," Reno said. "You deserve something special." inside, Lyra almost laughed. He had no idea he was planning his own destruction. Within days, Reno began sending invitations everywhere. Old friends, business partners, family, even some of the women he had secretly been seeing. After all, he believed his wife would never know. The guest list quickly grew. 50 people, 70, then over 100. The mansion would be full, exactly the way Lyra wanted. As preparations continued, Lyra secretly worked with Jorah every night. The recordings were carefully organized. Video clips, audio files, dates, names, evidence of every betrayal. Jorah visited late one evening, pretending to check on Lyra. "Everything is ready," Jorah whispered once Reno left the room. "Good," Lyra replied. "We connected your security system to every television in the house." Lyra nodded. "And the remote?" she asked. Jorah handed her a small device. "One button," Jorah said, "and every screen will play the videos." Lyra held the remote tightly. For 6 months she had remained silent. 6 months of insults, 6 months of humiliation, 6 months of watching the man she loved reveal his true self. But the moment of truth was finally coming. "Are you nervous?" Jorah asked. Lyra shook her head slowly. "No." Her voice was steady. "I am ready." The night of the party finally arrived. The mansion sparkled with bright lights and music. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Guests arrived wearing expensive suits and elegant dresses. Waiters walked around carrying trays of champagne. Soft jazz music filled the air. In the center of the room sat Lyra in her wheelchair, wearing a beautiful silver dress and dark sunglasses. Everyone approached her warmly. "You look wonderful," one woman said. "We're so happy to see you," another guest added. Lyra smiled politely. "Thank you for coming." Nearby, Reno played the role of the loving husband perfectly. He pushed her wheelchair, adjusted her blanket, spoke softly in her ear. Anyone watching would believe he was the most devoted husband in the world. Across the room, Senna stood beside the staircase watching quietly. Their eyes met for a moment, but Senna quickly looked away. She believed her sister could not see. The room continued filling with laughter, conversation, and music. Exactly the atmosphere Lyra wanted, because soon, everything would change. At exactly 9 p.m., Lyra raised her hand slightly. "May I have everyone's attention?" she said gently. The music slowly stopped. Guests turned toward her. The room grew quiet. Reno stood proudly beside her chair. Lyra took a slow breath. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began. "These past 6 months have been the most difficult time of my life." Several guests nodded sympathetically. "But during this time," Lyra continued, "I have learned something very important." Reno smiled politely beside her. "I learned who truly cares about me." There was a soft murmur of agreement in the crowd. "And I also learned something else," Lyra said calmly. "I learned who has been lying to me." Reno's smile began to fade slightly. The guests exchanged confused glances. "But tonight," Lyra continued, "I must confess something." She paused. Her voice grew stronger. "I have not been completely honest with all of you either." The room fell completely silent. Suddenly, Lyra placed both hands on the wheelchair arms, and slowly, she stood up. Gasps exploded across the room. Several guests stepped backward in shock. Reno's eyes widened. "Lyra, what are you doing?" he stammered. But she was already standing tall. She reached up and removed her dark sunglasses. Her eyes were clear, sharp, watching everything. "I am not paralyzed," she said calmly. The room froze. "And I am not blind." Reno looked like he had seen a ghost. "What?" he whispered. Lyra raised the small remote in her hand. "For 6 months, I pretended to be helpless." She pressed the button. Every television in the mansion suddenly turned on. Video footage filled the screens. Reno kissing another woman, Reno laughing with another. Then another appeared. Reno and Senna, together, inside Lyra's own bedroom. Guests covered their mouths in shock. "No way. Is that her sister? Unbelievable." The voices spread across the room like wildfire. Reno looked around desperately. "This is a lie," he shouted. "It's edited." But another recording immediately played. His own voice echoed clearly through the speakers. "Once the paperwork goes through, the money will all be mine." The room fell silent again. Reno's face turned pale. He slowly turned toward Lyra. "Lyra, please, we can talk about this." But Lyra's expression was calm, cooled. She stepped closer to him. "For 6 months, I sat in that chair while you treated me like nothing." Reno swallowed nervously. "You planned to steal my money." He said nothing. "You planned to lock me away in a care home." Still silent. "And worst of all," Lyra continued, turning slightly towards Sena, "you betrayed me with my own sister." Sena could not even lift her head. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered
Sorry
weakly.
does not erase
But
betrayal.
Lyra's voice
I know,
remained
but
firm.
please forgive me.
"Sorry does not
Forgiveness won't
erase
fix
betrayal."
this.
Just then, another man stepped forward from the crowd. He wore a dark suit and carried a thick folder. Reno looked confused. "Who is this?" Lyra answered calmly, "My lawyer." The man opened the folder and handed Reno several documents. "These are official legal papers," the lawyer said clearly. "Divorce filings." Reno's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. "There is also a restraining order and evidence supporting charges of attempted financial fraud and asset manipulation." The crowd murmured loudly again. Reno's face became desperate. "Lyra, wait. You know I love you." Lyra gave a short, humorless laugh. "You loved my money." Then she turned towards Sena. "And as for you, you are no longer part of this family."
Sena burst into tears. "Please, Lyra. You lost that right the moment you chose him over your own sister." Then Lyra faced the crowd once more. "Now everyone here knows the truth." She walked calmly toward the door. Reno stood frozen in the center of the room. His lies were exposed. His reputation was destroyed, and his future collapsed in front of 100 witnesses. Lyra walked out of the mansion without looking back. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. The court case moved quickly because the evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings, audio files, legal documents, everything clearly proved Reno had attempted to gain control of Lyra's fortune through deception. The prenup agreement protected her wealth completely. Reno received nothing. Not the mansion, not the business shares, not even a small portion of her savings. Instead, he faced criminal charges for attempted financial fraud. His reputation collapsed. Former friends avoided him. Business partners refused to work with him. As for Sena, the family completely cut her off. She lost her inheritance and disappeared from public life. But Lyra's story spread across the country. News channels reported it everywhere. The woman who pretended to be blind to expose her cheating husband. Soon, she wrote a book about the experience.
Thank you
It
all for
became a
coming to celebrate
bestseller.
Launay with me.
Later, she
Your
started a
support means
foundation
the world.
helping women escape financial abuse and toxic relationships. 1 year later, at a charity gala, a man approached her politely. "Excuse me," he said with a gentle smile. "You must be Lyra Dane." She looked up. "Yes?" he said. "My name is Daryl. I admire what you did. That took courage." Lyra smiled slightly. "Thank you." He hesitated before asking, "Would you like to have coffee sometime?" She raised her eyebrow playfully. "And how do I know you're not interested in my money?" Darrow laughed. "You don't." "Then why should I trust you?" she asked. He shrugged with a smile. "Because I'm willing to earn that trust slowly." Lyra studied him for a moment. Then she smiled again. "Coffee," she said. "Just coffee." For the first time in years, she felt something new. Hope. But this time, she would keep her eyes open, because Lyra had learned an unforgettable truth. When people believe you cannot see them, they reveal exactly who they really are. And sometimes,
the quietest person in the room is the one who sees everything. Thank you for watching, sweet folks. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out of our sweet and captivating stories we have in store for you on this channel. Also, tell us what you've learned and where you're watching from in the comments section. Your voice matters to us here. Stay and enjoy another stories on this channel. We remain the #1 sweetest African folktales. Love you, sweet folks.